You talked about Elon Musk. You had him in dinner here in the White House. Is he now back in your circle of friends?
Well, I really don't know. I mean, I like Elon a lot. He was a very, he really helped during the election with his endorsement. He felt strongly. Look, we had one problem. You know, I didn't want to have everybody have to have an electric car, and he makes electric cars. And yeah, I think we get along well.
You know, on affordability,
$1.99 a gallon, unthinkable. If you go back a year and a half ago, it's unthinkable. So now we're bringing the prices down, way down. Beef is coming down now. We've done certain magic, and beef is coming down. But we inherited horrible prices. We inherited really the worst inflation in history. We inherited that. When I came in, that's what he had. We're bringing the prices down. Tennessee. And this woman goes, affordability, affordability. They're the ones that caused the problem.
spot on, sir. I think you got to start with the baseline, which Marco laid out, everybody's laid out. We've got 20 million people invading our country over 4 years. We don't know where they're coming from. That includes Tren de Aragua and cartels and violent criminals. They bring drugs, and you mentioned it, Mr. President, poisoning, an intentional poisoning of the American people, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans. So the president had the courage to designate these cartels as designated terrorist organizations. Now, a number of us here served in the military and spent 20 years fighting terrorists like Al-Qaeda and ISIS on the other side of the world. How do you treat Al-Qaeda and ISIS? Do you arrest them and treat them, pat them on the head and say, don't do that again? Or do you end the problem directly by taking a lethal, kinetic approach? And that's the way President Trump has authorized the War Department to look at these cartels. And I wish everybody could be in the room watching our professionals like Mitch Bradley, Admiral Mitch Bradley, and others at JSOC and SOCOM and other commanders. The deliberative process, the detail, the rigorous, the intel, the legal, the evidence-based way that we're able to, with sources and methods that we can't reveal here, that make sure that every one of those drug boats is tied to a designated terrorist organization. We know who's on it, what they're doing, what they're carrying. All these white bales are not Christmas gifts from Santa. This is drugs running on four-motor fast boats or submarines that we've also struck. No one's fishing on a submarine. And I have empowered them to make that call. Now, the first couple of strikes, as you would, as any leader would want, you want to own that responsibility. So I said, I'm going to be the one to make the call after getting all the information and make sure it's the right strike. That was September 2nd. There's a lot of intelligence that goes into that, building that case and understanding that. A lot of people providing information. I watched that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever, where all the sensitive site exploitation digitally occurs. So I moved on to my next meeting. A couple of hours later, I learned that that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do, and by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat.
When Trump faced questions about the now confirmed U.S. strike on a suspected trafficking vessel near Venezuela, the entire room leaned forward like they were waiting for the last episode of a cliffhanger series. He explained that the strike, and the follow-up strike that raised international eyebrows, was all part of a wider, more aggressive strategy to stop narcotics from reaching American shores. Trump emphasized that the amount of fentanyl and cocaine pouring into the country has become so dangerous that even a single boat represents a massive potential loss of life. He described traffickers as highly organized, heavily equipped, and strategically deceptive. In his view, the military approach is designed not only to intercept, but to deter future smuggling runs entirely. While reporters pressed him for specifics on who authorized what, he stayed focused on the broader mission, stopping deadly flows, saving lives, and signaling that the U.S. is shifting toward far tougher maritime enforcement. And just when reporters thought they'd unraveled that mystery, Trump dropped another headline bomb, because what's a briefing without jumping across continents? When pressed about ongoing diplomatic conversations involving Russia or possible updates on communications between White House advisors and Vladimir Putin's circle, Trump swerved into a blend of candor and teasing. He didn't confirm any breakthroughs, but the way he phrased his answers suggested that something serious, delicate, and highly strategic was happening behind closed doors. Trump painted a picture of a world where conflicts drag on endlessly, costing tens of thousands of lives every single month, and said his focus is on finding ways to de-escalate large-scale war. Although he didn't reveal negotiations or major diplomatic moves, he repeated that the ongoing conflicts overseas, particularly in Eastern Europe, could have been avoided under firmer global leadership. The reporters tried to nudge him into revealing specifics, but he kept things mysterious enough to fuel speculation and strong enough to hint that major geopolitical recalibrations might be underway. But hold up, because before the room could recover from that tease, Trump pivoted again, this time straight into one of the world's most sensitive flashpoints. The conversation shifted to the Middle East the moment Gaza came up, and Trump delivered his take with the intensity of someone flipping a switch from political analysis to national security urgency. He described ongoing instability, the need for tighter regional control, and the consequences of letting hostile groups operate freely across borders. What stood out was how he linked Gaza's situation with broader global instability, arguing that Gaza conflicts don't happen in isolation anymore. They ripple outward, affecting global alliances, military posture, humanitarian conditions, and the balance of power. Trump didn't shy away from saying that the U.S. must remain assertive in the region to protect its interests and allies. While he avoided revealing exact policy actions, he framed Gaza as part of a bigger puzzle the U.S. is watching closely to prevent escalation from turning into a multi-front crisis. And if you thought that was the heavy part, the next segment turned the pressure up even higher. As details about the second strike near Venezuela emerged, lawmakers from both sides of the aisle began demanding clarity, and Trump made it clear he wasn't backing away from the broader strategy. But here's the twist. International observers and human rights analysts began raising concerns about the legality of secondary strikes, especially involving survivors instead of active combatants. Congress is preparing oversight hearings, military decision-makers are being pressed for timelines, and the chain of command is under the microscope. Trump, however, insists the mission saves lives and disrupts deadly networks that have been flooding American communities with dangerous substances. His stance is that decisive action is necessary to prevent tragedy at home, even if it stirs controversy overseas. The spotlight is now on whether U.S. commanders followed established protocols, and the incoming investigations may reshape how far these maritime operations go. Which brings us to the final, and maybe the most important takeaway of the entire briefing. Stepping back, the briefing wasn't just an update. It was a roadmap for where Trump intends to steer U.S. policy if operations continue at this pace. From Venezuela to Russia to Gaza, his tone made one thing obvious. He wants the U.S. acting quickly, decisively, and without hesitation when he believes American security is on the line. Whether it's disrupting narcotics routes, applying diplomatic pressure, or recalibrating alliances, he framed his approach as bold, unapologetic, and results-focused. But the fallout, both diplomatic and legal, is going to shape the months ahead. Expect international debates, congressional hearings, and intensified scrutiny of military operations. At the same time, Trump supporters argue that a tougher stance is necessary to stop global threats before they hit home. The world is watching because whatever happens next won't be small. If you're still with us, you already know this story isn't going away anytime soon, so hit that like button, subscribe to @Global Pulse Newz, and drop your take in the comments. Do these strikes make America safer or open up a whole new wave of global tension? Your voice matters, and we're covering every twist as it unfolds.